Welcome to Love in the Wild, the podcast where healing gets real, dating can be complicated, and self-love is the main character energy we're all here for. I'm your host, Katelyn Ansari, recovering people pleaser, expert red flag spotter, and your personal cheerleader through every glow-up, breakdown, and late-night overthinking spiral. Every week, we're diving into love, heartbreak, boundaries, and the wild ride of becoming that girl. Healed, happy, and unbothered. So grab your matcha, your journal, or just your AirPods, because around here, we don't chase love, we become it. Welcome to my first ever episode of Love in the Wild. I am sharing something I've only told my therapist, so I'm a little nervous. I'm really excited. I told you guys this was going to be an authentic, real, and raw, and just a different kind of podcast. I originally started this podcast thinking I was going to do it with somebody else. And it was going to be all about dating advice and meeting people organically and just kind of finding love in the wild, hence the name. And when we inevitably ended things, I was kind of bummed because I had all these plans for what this avenue of my life was going to be. And it was going to be a shared thing. And there were going to be events and there was going to be merch and there was going to be a podcast that we had already planned out. And so putting in all that work and feeling like it was going to end was really hard. But I woke up the other day with just pure motivation to restart it. And I don't know if that's a God thing or that's just me being stubborn and not wanting to let something as cool as this go. But we're here. We're going to start it up. We're going to see how it goes. And episode 1 is all about my insecurities out loud. So instead of talking about, my relationship, I'm really going to start from the foundation and understanding how I show up in relationships, what my insecurities are, who I am as a person, and where I'm going in life. So if you don't know yet, I have 2 kids. They are 10 and a half and 5. They are my entire world. And that's a huge part of my dating life. But, after I got divorced 3 years ago, I knew I needed to go to therapy. I knew I needed to really take a deep look into myself and be like, who am I coming out of this? And what is life going to look like? And who did I show up as in my marriage that, ultimately contributed to 50% of the failure of, our relationship? And so going to therapy really helped me a lot. And I realized that my entire 30-something years of life, I was choosing partners shaped around fear. I don't know if you guys know this. It's not a hidden secret of my life, but I was adopted when I was born. And that within itself has a lot of identity issues. I've always chased love for the most part. Not to say that my adopted parents, weren't the most loving and caring people in the world, but when you're adopted, you just have this feeling like you've never been good enough for anybody. And so you constantly, for me, I'm just trying to prove myself to somebody else so that I can be loved. And I was always putting myself in a position to be loved versus loving myself first and finding out that the person who was going to love me for me versus who I was positioning myself to be. So I've been working a lot in therapy to just reframe that negative narrative. And one thing that has really helped in that scenario is trusting my gut. And I know that's, for some people, that might not be, you're like, why is that difficult? But for me, I truly like look at the bigger picture, and I'm always thinking about other people's, their thoughts as well. I'm definitely a people pleaser. I want to make sure that everyone else is happy. And then I always put myself last. So I try to make a decision that will make everyone else happy, regardless of if I'm happy. So I know that sounds crazy, but the thing that my therapist and I have been talking about is trusting my gut feeling. Like, what is my first initial feeling on a situation and listening to it. So, I remember I went to Nashville for a day, and I was like telling her, I called her in for an emergency session. I was like, this is so irresponsible of me. Like, I cannot believe, like, I can't go to Nashville for a day and just go dance and have fun. And she was like, why not? Why can you not go? Your ticket is paid for. Your kids are with their dad. You're not working. What is the worst that could happen? And I was like, you're right. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, what is the worst that could happen? I was like, I don't know. I spend too much money. She's like, okay. So if you spend too much money, what happens? It's like, well, I'll just make it up. I'll make more money, or I'll just budget better next week or whatever. And she was like, so do you want to go? I was like, yeah, I want to go. It's Nashville. It'll be so much fun. I love traveling. She's like, so go. Do the thing. So that has been a huge, I guess, learning curve for me, is looking at a situation and trusting my gut intuition, because as women, I feel like we have been graced with that. And whatever you believe in, if it's the universe or if it's God, it really is kind of like your guiding light. And we all have it, but I think we lose it down the road. And, once I realized that I was choosing partners based on if they love me or not, it really made me look at like who I was as a person. And, I realized like how I was showing up in a relationship. I was making myself smaller so that I could continue to stay loved. And that was a really hard pill for me to swallow, because I'd wonder like why I was chasing love and why I felt like I wasn't good enough to be loved by anybody. And it was the deciding factor in all of my relationships. I chose the person that I knew would love me. And when I got divorced, I had lost all sense of identity. And to be honest, I don't think I really ever had it. A little bit of a timeline. I had got out of high school. I went to college. My senior year of college, I got into modeling and started building like my social media presence. And, when you're a model, you fit the mold of everybody else. So, and you fit the mold of what every other brand needs. And, I kind of built my persona around that, which was great. And it's rooted in who I am and the morals and the values that I do have. And, my spunky personality. But at the same time, it was also very much like the time where you kind of learn who you are and what you're doing. And I was put into an industry that really was like, we don't want you to have too much of an identity, right? We want you to be the, beauty queen, very PC, I did my hair the same way every single shoot. I did my makeup the same every single shoot. And while I am a person that loves consistency, even had to weigh like the same amount. Like I could fluctuate maybe 5 to 10 pounds, but it was very much like I was stuck in a box of who I was the entire time. And I don't I'm not faulting that at all. But, after my modeling career, then I had my son, and I got into more of like mom blogging and influencing, and I kind of figured out my personality a little bit, but at the same time, I wasn't really rooted in who I was at that time. I had been doing it for maybe 4 years max, and I was just kind of trying to find myself and figure out my likes, dislikes, and all the rest. And getting married, then your identity becomes your marriage and your family, and I don't fault that at all. I don't ever want to use this podcast as a platform to bash past relationships or people in my life, regardless of the outcome. I don't think it's fair for me having a platform to use it in a way that could single-sidedly give an opinion of what happened. I do think that there's 3 sides to every story, and having a platform just kind of gives me an unfair advantage to share my story single-sidedly. So just know that this is not ever going to be a reason to bash anybody else. But I will say, coming out of my marriage, I did feel like I had no idea who I was. I mean, I was coming out of it, a completely different person than I was before, to the point where, like I mentioned earlier, that someone asked me like, hey, I'm stopping at the gas station. I'm going to get some snacks. What would you like? And I was completely out of words. I had no idea even what kind of snacks I wanted, because I had no idea who I was or like what I liked or what I felt like. And that was one of the moments where I was like, I need therapy to really break down those kind of like walls from being adopted and, constantly being a people pleaser, because I should be able to say what kind of snacks I want. I should be able to have an opinion and stand tall in that opinion and say it with my chest and say, yeah, this is what I want. And if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm still going to do it anyways, or I'm still going to get the snack, or it's okay if we don't like the same things. So I think the very end of it, the last 3 years have really been pivotal for me to figure out who I was and become secure with who I was, professionally, financially, as a mom, as a friend, and therapy has really helped me open up to know that it's okay to be vulnerable with people. It's okay to have opinions. Opinions don't change the love you have for different people, friends, relationships. It's actually kind of like, our differences are what make people love us. And the parts of me that I thought made me unlovable are actually what made me super powerful. And they made me who I am today. Now that we are all caught up on my insecurities, I hope these resonated with you. And our next episode, we are going to be talking about healing in real time. So we're going to be talking about actionable items that you can do every day to help you become more powerful in the person that you are, and the things that you think are unlovable, making those your superpower. Because, bestie, I think you are amazing. I think that we are all wildly capable of finding the love that we desire, but we're not going to find that love until we start loving ourselves. And if we do find that love before loving ourselves, it's probably not going to end well. So thank you for joining me in this self-healing journey. It was really hard to explain it in real time, but I hope it resonated with you. And if it does, share it with somebody who needs to feel seen too. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Love in the Wild. If you laughed, nodded, cried, or texted your bestie mid-episode, you already know the drill. Don't keep it to yourself. Leave a review, share it in your stories, and tag me at Katelyn Ansari so I can hype you up right back. Remember, healing isn't linear, dating isn't a sport, and you're doing better than you think. Be soft, stay unbreakable, and I'll see you next week.